Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to another stream. Hope I find you well. Excited to do some some business stuff today. We're going to be talking about financial and non-financial types of motivation. Before we get into it, I know, as I said, although I'm going to be using these in the future, and this probably won't really apply, or it will apply because you'll know the ending of this. I'll either be proved right or proved wrong. We're gonna have a look at the news after this, and today, which is when's this? It is the 11th of May, 2020. Boris Johnson went on national, international TV, the lot last night to talk about his sort of plans / non-plans / not really sure what that was, of how he's going to kickstart the economy and stuff. The problem with it really wasn't anything specifically he said, although a lot of things seem to contradict each other. It was the fact that Scotland and Wales have completely gone out of the other side and said no. They're just saying like no. We're not putting people at risk. Do not come near us. So we're going to be having a look at that. We are living in crazy times. Every time you think it's going to get slightly less crazy, it gets more crazy. So I know people will be wanting to know my opinion. My students love it when I get riled up. I'm trying to try and not get riled up about things like this. Because at the end of the day, at this moment in time, we are safe, and that's the main point, isn't it? That's the thing to do. At the point, even if you only watch this for 5 minutes and then you go on with the rest of your life, just be sensible, yeah. Don't listen to everything they say and like follow it verbatim, because sometimes things are being run by idiots, aren't they? Or they've got other concerns. We know stakeholders have different reasons for doing things, don't we? So we don't know what's going on. We don't really know what the bigger plan is here. But either way, the thing is just got to be, you've got to protect yourself, haven't you? Make sure you're okay. Make sure your family's okay. Make sure your friends are okay. Please don't, start doing crazy stuff because of what he has or hasn't said. We're living in crazy times, though. But anyway, we'll have a chat about that in a bit when we get to the news. I hope everyone's okay and abiding by this stuff. You couldn't write it, could you? It's insane. It's just going crazier and crazier. So we're going to do some financial and non-financial incentives today. It sort of goes on from the last lesson, which was motivation. Talk a little bit about money and non-money, really. So let's jump straight in. Okay. So again, not the most difficult thing. I think it definitely, motivation's a lot more difficult in terms of the expectations on you to actually do it. 1 second, let me just take this off because it's annoying me. There we go. That's better. Sort of. We talk about people being motivated by money. We talked about those, didn't we? And if you want to do some revision on the different motivation theories, we did it really in depth on last week when the stream was on. It's on the previous video to this. So we'll if you're interested, please feel free to go back and have a look at them. Really, really important, the motivational theories. But let's get into these. Okay. All right. So, learning objective 1, explain financial methods of motivation, including piece rate, commission, bonus, salary, profit sharing, share ownership, and performance-related pay. We've got learning objective 2, explain non-financial methods of motivation, including consultation, job design, job enlargement, job rotation, job enrichment, job empowerment, team working, flexible working. Learning objective 3, evaluate the appropriateness of various financial and non-financial methods of motivation for a business and its stakeholders. So it's the same sort of stuff we always do. What it is, and then apply it to a situation and look at the stakeholders. All right. Okay. So first things first, let's just do a little thought exercise. I know that though that you've already done this in the last lesson. If you've watched that. So, but basically, what is your dream job? And what are the benefits? All right. So if you take a second, just write them down. What would the benefits be? Would it be money? Would it be opportunities? Would it be holidays? Would it be, discounts? Would it be, you see what I mean? All those different things. What would it be? What would it, because it's not just the money, is it? A lot of the time, it's the, would it be the accolade of actually working somewhere like that? Would it be the opportunities for promotion? What would it be that would be, make it your dream job? Would it be able to travel? Would it be, what would it be? Company car? And then, so what is a dream job? What will benefits will it be? And how many of them are financial and non-financial? Financial meaning, monetary. Non-financial meaning non-monetary, anything else, company car, whatever it is like that. All right. So take a moment, have a go, and then we're gonna break these down. So feel free to pause the stream. I'm going to carry on and then, catch up with me. Okay. So, motivation in practice. So, motivational theories are useful tools and guidelines for managers. We know, don't we? We have Taylorism, we have Mayo, we have Maslow, we have Hertzberg, we have Porter and Lawler. So, there's quite a lot of different ones. Do you remember we were talking about them the other day? But the main thing we use these is putting them into practice, in it, which isn't as easy as it sounds sometimes. What motivational methods are used daily in businesses all over the world? Well, we have a range of them, don't we? We can have literally just, speaking to people, actually asking people, like sort of shouting at people, whatever it is. The most important thing is that we can, understand that there are a range of quite simple things happening, but we've just got to make sure that we sort of categorize them correctly, because even things where they're saying, oh yeah, well, asking someone to do something or threatening someone with a response if you didn't do something, it's still a motivational tactic, isn't it? We won't bother, in reality, we don't go into this much detail usually, but for the purposes of this, it is, isn't it, in terms of that. So, first of all, financial methods and motivation. Managers and organisations use a variety of pay systems in an attempt to improve their performance of the workforce. Despite attention given to the views and theorists that they do not see money as the prime motivator, pay remains a major incentive in the business world today. So, I said in the last stream, that we were going to talk about pay and things like that, and that most students would say that pay would be the main motivator for doing the job. And that's because they tend to be doing low-skill, low-wage jobs, and it tends to not be the main focus in life. It tends to be giving them a little bit of money to be able to do this and that. Not everyone, of course, it'll depend on the circumstance. But we also said that despite that, because they're getting paid, perhaps, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it is because they're being paid, actually. I don't think it is that the reason why students tend to be more professional in the workplace than they do at college. I think it's because they're seen as a professional, they're seen as an adult, so they tend to be more professional in the workplace because they don't think they're at school. So it's an interesting one. As I said, there's a lot of psychology that goes into this, isn't there, of why people act like they do and why people sort of what persona they're putting on. But when I see students in the workplace, they're all very well turned out, very professional, they don't swear every other word or things like that. And then you see them in the classroom, or you see them in the in the halls, and it will be effing and jeffing every other word. They will have made sure that they're smartly dressed, but it won't be professional dress. It will be whatever they feel like that day, because ultimately this is like their off time, even though that they're in supposed to be in a professional place. And it's interesting, that, isn't it, how you kind of put your mind in it, because I've definitely done it. I think a lot of it is to do with uniform. Like they say, don't they? I don't know, when you put clothes on, if you put a suit on, if you put a tie on, it makes you feel different than if you didn't. I always remember that, and that's a lot of reason why they do it at schools and stuff like that, isn't it? That is motivation. It's a non-financial motivation technique, that, isn't it? Putting you in a uniform. But there is definitely a difference between the mentality of a student in the workplace and the mentality of a student, and not always. I mean, we get students getting kicked off, work experience and stuff and stuff, but they're just stupid people, aren't they? Essentially, and I don't mean intellectually. I mean they're not really understanding the significance of the situation that they're in. You know, you get these people, don't you? Just to sideline ourselves slightly, you get these people. I don't know if you know of them, but these people who waste opportunities like that. You know, oh, we're going to do some work experience, which will give you 2 weeks experience, and I know that it's not always the most in depth or most important thing you've ever done, but ultimately it gives you an opportunity to try something new, to try to actually be in the workplace and things like that. And they'll look for every opportunity to just not do the work because they're not in the right frame of mind, are they? And that's all to do. That's what motivation is. They're not motivated to do anything. They'd rather be at home on their Xbox. Of course they would. We all would. Well, I say that. Interestingly enough, a lot of people complain about not having enough holidays, and then now in this situation where they've been been at home for 7 weeks, now it's not a bit of fun, is it? Now they don't want holidays. They wanted holidays where they could go abroad. They didn't want holidays where they had to stay in. So just a bit of a sideline thing there, but I'm just trying to prove a point. Okay, so first things first, let's have a look. So it says financial methods. This is the simple one. So when we're talking about cash, all right. So what we do is we say we set some targets agreed between the employee and the line manager, sales targets, level of customer satisfaction, that kind of stuff, whatever it is that we're working on that time. Then we collect the evidence on employee performance through observation or data. So whatever it is that we, how we're doing it. If we're looking at sales, then we can collect the sales data. If we're looking at customer satisfaction, we can look at some kind of, well, it's market research at the end of the day, isn't it? We do some market research essentially on the certain specific circumstance of whatever we're trying to do. And then a pay decision is made. Those meeting all the performance targets fully might receive 5% extra. Excuse me. Least effective performers may receive 0. Some people would say, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to get my full wage anyway. Other people would see it as a small, a small motivational thing to get that little bonus. I'm sorry. I'm tired at the minute. Anyway, so financial methods. Now, this is the big one that we've talked about already, isn't it? And this is piece rate. Now, piece rate is what they're showing here is this chap who's sort of digging stuff up out of the ground. And this is what piece rate is used a lot for. Is so let's say you were harvesting strawberries. It would be how many strawberries or how many punnets of strawberries would you submit, and you would get a payment per punnet of strawberries. Paid according to the quantity produced. Can you think of any industries this would work for? Well, farming would be a good one. Manufacturing would be a good one. Manufacturing to an extent, quite simple manufacturing, not really complex manufacturing. But when you're doing, maybe sort of production line work, that kind of stuff. Piece rate as well. Sometimes they pay you for things like you can get it. I mean, they talk about it's kind of like commission as well, isn't it? We are gonna break it down with commission, but yeah, they do pay you per thing of whatever you get essentially. So it's slightly different than commission, but this is more of a physical thing that you produce, usually piece rate. Interestingly enough about this though, this is the industry where they were saying that they're already, and this could be to do with, well, it is definitely to do with Brexit, to be honest, but I suppose it's that the pandemic doesn't help as well. But they were saying that a hell of a lot of foreign workers in the UK are people who go and do the farming and things like that, and already those people are leaving the UK or have left the UK, and we are already at a massive deficit of people who are supposed to be working on the fields. So they're trying to get people to do it, and all these people who said they wanted these jobs and that foreign people were taking the jobs or whatever it is that they were saying this week, they're not jumping out of the woodwork to come and do these jobs. Because that's what people do, isn't it, on the internet? They all shout nonsense. They all shout, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, everybody feels sorry for me, blah, blah, blah. But they don't actually want to go and do any work themselves, do they? They don't actually want to go and get in a field. They don't actually want to go and do these people's jobs. So now, the foreign people who these people hate so much, who were providing very valuable skills, even if it was just their arms and legs, so that they could do this quite basic labour. Now they're not here, then there is going to be an expectation for people, not me because I'm not doing it, but for other people to be working on the land, and this is what everybody wanted apparently. So it's a strange one. as I said, it's motivation. What a big topic to really talk about. What a strange one at the minute, because it's so applicable to real life at this moment in time, isn't it? Why did people vote for Brexit? Why did people? Why have people been doing either abiding by the lockdown versus not abiding by the lockdown? It's a difficult one, isn't it? And when they say there's no right or wrong answer, there is a right and wrong answer. It just depends on whether you're willing to accept it or not, doesn't it? At the same situation. But motivation's a very odd thing. It does change people, and affect them quite significantly. Can you think of any problems that this type of pay system? Well, if you have a bad day, you're going to be paid less or something like that. I mean, it does try and promote you doing consistently, but it could actually as well. If you're only being paid per how many things you could do, you're not going to be particularly worried about quality. Oh yeah, so it could be an issue with quality with that. It's more on just how many you can output. Should keep costs in line with production and therefore hopefully sales revenue. Yeah, which theorists would support this? Can you remember which one it was? So it's just about money. So Taylorist would be a good one for this one, wouldn't it? Profit sharing. Companies that have profit sharing programs set aside for a percentage of their profits for employees. So this is if you do really well and we make a good profit, we're going to give a percentage of that profit to the workforce as a bit of a thank you. The better the company does, the higher the profits and the more money that the employees receive. When employees have a stake in the company, they tend to work harder and smarter. So yeah, a big one for this could be someone like John Lewis. They're a mutual, aren't they? They're a co-op. So they will give people. They do a lot of profit sharing, and that's down to the nature of the structure of the business and things like that. If you want to know about them, go right back to when we started talking about business structures and different types of businesses. But if you remember, with mutuals, they own a percentage of the company, don't they? So this definitely profit sharing is a big one for them. So advantages for this one. For profit sharing is a brilliant motivational tactic. It means that people are going to be motivated to do work. It means that they are going to feel more invested in the business. It means they are going to consistently want to give a better experience to the customer, and also be willing to go above and beyond for that company. And we see this with co-ops a lot of the time. That they are willing to go up above and beyond, that the employees are willing to do that extra bit for the company. They've even done it so there has been times when co-op, for example, have asked their employees to take a pay cut or to allow them to not pay them for a little bit because they had to do something. And a lot of the time, the employees are willing to go above and beyond and willing to allow that to happen because they feel like they're part of something. So it's not always that, not always. We're not talking. I don't want to get it mixed up of saying profit sharing is only in mutuals. It isn't. It's more on mutual that rather than profit sharing. But profit sharing does make you feel like you're part of something, doesn't it? So it can help you that. So what theories would support this? Well, we're probably looking at maybe Maslow. I suppose you could kind of say. You could argue Mayo, couldn't you, because of the team working thing and part of being part of a team, maybe it's more of the communication thing that he's bothered about, isn't he? But you could potentially argue that. Remember, that's the brilliant thing about business, isn't it? As long as you can argue the case, a lot of the time they're quite reasonable with you and they'll give you the marks for it. Financial methods, so let's keep going. It says share ownership, pay employees shares of profits in the form of company shares. Varies enormously between organisations. Opportunity to purchase shares after saving for a short period of time. Offers free shares as an incentive. So places like BAE Systems do this, Red Row, that kind of place, house builders and things like that. If they're doing well, they might offer you this. What they tend to do is they usually do it as like a savings scheme. So what you'll do is you'll put your money into a savings scheme with them, and the savings scheme will make sure that your money's safe, and they will allow you to buy the shares at a discounted rate. So let's say you bought shares today, they were £1 each, right? And you wanted to put £100 into them, so you've bought 100 shares. Now, you know how shares work, don't you? But let's just really recap really quickly. Shares are a part ownership of the business. So if the ownership does well, if the company's doing well, then more people will want to buy them. So therefore, you might be able to sell them on at a slight profit because just in terms of supply and demand, people will be willing to pay you to get a piece of the action. Obviously, the better the company does, the more people would be willing to spend on shares. So therefore, you'd be able to sell them for more. The other alternative is that you'd be able to keep hold of them and get a dividend. And a dividend will be, in terms of this, will be a payment that the company would give you, just to tide you over, really, to as a thank you, as your percentage of the profit. So what they would allow you to do is they would allow you to put the money for the 100 shares in a savings thing, and then they would say that they were worth £1, they would let you buy them at 90p instead. So you would already have an advantage. If you wanted to keep them, you'd get them at a discount rate, but if you wanted to sell them, you've already made a profit, essentially, haven't you? That's how a lot of the time these work. That's why they don't allow you to buy them automatically. You've got to wait for a little while. So advantages. Why is this thing good? Well, for share ownership, it's good because it makes you feel like you're part of the team, doesn't it? It makes you feel like you're part of the organisation. It gives you either a regular dividend, but I think with this one, it's about staff turnover and absenteeism as well. It makes you be more invested in the business and want to stay with the business because you are getting that. It's also another way for the business to keep the costs down because they're not physically having to give you a pay rise, as they will technically have given you a pay rise because they can do it in share options instead, can't they? So it gives you more options. It means that you're more likely to stay on with them. It means that you're more likely to do that. So it's good for the business, isn't it? It allows you to keep costs down to an extent. Which theorists would support this method? Well, we've got it's very similar to the other one, isn't it? So in terms of this, I think Taylor would. I mean, it's difficult with Taylor because Taylor would say that it would be that, but I don't think he would be. It is financial, but it's more than that, isn't it? So I think definitely Maslow with this one, because if you think about the hierarchy of needs, the higher up you go with it, that sort of those esteem needs and feeling connected and feeling like respected and things like that, that would be part of this, I think. But as I said, a lot of this is open to interpretation. If you want to say, no, well, actually, I think it's more safety needs because to do with job security and feeling like I'm more connected to the business, well, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Or if you want to say, well, actually, I think it's about, motivating factors because motivating factors from Hertzberg says that I would be doing this. Well, that's fine, isn't it? That would be quite reasonable if you said that at that time. Okay. Fringe benefits. Okay, so what are fringe benefits? Well, fringe benefits are extras an employee receives as part of their reward package. Can you think of any examples? Cars, health insurance, dental insurance. These kind of things, they tend to be more abroad than they do in the UK in terms of the health insurance and that, although you can have them. Just because we've got the NHS and you've already got health insurance, haven't you? As a given, but you can get stuff like Bupa, you can get other things as well being given to you just to do with the business. Company cars. You can be given access to holiday homes. You can be given, there's a wide range of things here, isn't there, in terms of, what it is. More holidays, subsidised food, free meals, clothing, discounts, a wide range, isn't there? All right. So, next we get on to performance-related pay. So, performance-related pay, if you remember, is paid to those employees who meet or exceed some agreed targets. So, it's a bit like piece rate, but it can be bigger than that. Piece rate tends to be on a specific product, like we said, producing things. Performance-related pay can be linked to anything. Forms part of the appraisal process. We talked about appraisals. If you can't remember them, go back and have a look. Under PRP, but employees are paid their contribution to the organisation rather than their status within it. Widely used, Cadbury's. It says schools. Schools is a different one because there's an argument against that, and unions have tried to stop performance-related pay with this because it's not really fair. The argument against it is that it isn't fair because if you do things like schools, if I was, say for example, if I was working at a school and if I had performance-related pay, that would mean I would get more money or a bonus or something like that if my students did better, which is the argument is, well, yeah, okay, well, why wouldn't that be good? Well, because there is a hell of a lot of other stuff that affects student attainment, isn't it? It's not just the teacher. So by the same token, you might just get a good year where there's a lot of people who are doing really well, but then again, you might get a bad year where there's not, and in which case, it's not really fair to berate or congratulate the teacher when it's not really them. I always say a good teacher will make a small difference to you in terms of positive. A bad teacher will make a small difference to you in terms of negative, but a good student will always succeed. So remember, that's the difficulty with this, isn't it? When you talk about performance-related pay, if you're doing something like actual physical production of things, it makes more sense than things which are massively psychological, like, as I said, students coming to college, or you don't know what's happening in their lives and things like that. All right. So, in terms of this, definitely the Taylorism kind of idea again, isn't it? You know, which theories would support it? Employee performance can be difficult to measure, a really difficult one. If unliked by a manager, it might be withheld, and that is the point, isn't it? Are you willing to go and wash your manager's car at a weekend? What is it that you are physically willing to do to make sure that you get these bonuses? And that's the problem, isn't it? You don't want people having too much power. If and actual pay received can be lower per individual as across the organisation, it is expensive. So it's a weird one, but essentially, performance-related pay just says, well, if you've met your targets, you get a bonus. But then you've got to think about, right, well, who's setting the targets? Who's measuring the targets? How are we measuring the targets? So there's a lot of other things that go into it, isn't there? Okay. Now, commission. We talked about commission slightly. Commissions, like piece rate, is a payment for achieving a target, but it's kind of like when they give you some money. It's like piece rate, but not in terms of production. It's usually in terms of sales. For example, car salespeople get commission for every £100 of commission of £100 for every car they sell. Some workers are paid entirely on commission. A salesperson, for example, may be based may be paid entirely on the basis of their sales. Alternatively, a worker may be paid on the basic salary and then receive commission on top. Now, you need to keep an eye on this, because when you are applying for jobs, it might say something and then OTE, and that usually means that isn't the actual pay. That is what you might expect to make if you do really well in terms of commission and things like that. So companies are trying to attract the right people, but they're saying, well, if you do really well and if you sell loads of stuff for us, and if you're able to do that, then you might be able to make loads of commission to top up your wage. Yeah, but I personally wouldn't want to work in a company where I didn't know what I was going to get paid at the end of the month. Some people like it. I know some people who are very successful salespeople, and they really like it, because you do see a genuine response. You see a sort of a benefit to your effort, don't you? Essentially, I don't know whether it's actually, and I suppose it could be demotivating, the fact that you could be really, really trying hard, but just have a bad run of not getting sales and things like that. But yeah, personally, it wouldn't be for me, but some people really like it. So commissions based on pay, commission-based pay systems are intended to incentivize workers by trying to pay with output. Again, it's a Taylorism kind of thing, isn't it? So the main thing I want to be drawing you into is Taylorism and these financial things, and then you've got the other ones, haven't you? I don't want you to, instinctively just say, well, commission is that, because you could say, well, no, actually, because Maslow's hierarchy says that you need to be feeling more involved with things and feeling like you are getting rewarded for your actions, in which case you could argue that commission is quite high up, or rather it's sort of like safety upwards on Maslow's hierarchy, couldn't you, potentially? But yeah, the main thing, make it easy for yourself. Just think of the financial versus non-financial. It depends on what the question was in the exam, really, doesn't it? Okay, and for these ones, salaries and wages. Salaries and wages are obvious, aren't they? But at the end of the day, let's just talk about them for a second. Salaries expressed in annual terms, so £30,000 a year, paid monthly. It doesn't matter how much you do or you don't do. So some people will do better than others. Wages usually paid weekly or overtime given out if you work over your usual hours. Employees receive payment for the job they do if you just get a wage. Okay, so most of you, if you are students, will be on wages rather than salaries. That means you're hourly paid, that you're paid for what you do. I'm not on hourly paid, I'm on a salary. It doesn't matter if I'm here doing this or, gone out for a run, I'll get paid the same. as long as I'm doing my job, of course. Um, and the idea is that it's supposed to incentivize, people, because if you were to hourly pay teachers, people wouldn't be able to afford to pay us because of the stuff that we do off the time. Essentially, we know what is a working day for a teacher. It's difficult because you tend to do things at the weekend. You might do things like that. So when other people are going, oh yeah, well, the you know the they get paid hourly, so if you just work in the shop, then they get paid. They don't tend to go. You wouldn't go and do some stacking shelves. Say you work at Tesco, you wouldn't go in at a weekend, would you, and stack a couple of shelves in your own time. Whereas if you're doing salary work, sometimes you will just do things at home, or stay back, or come in early, or whatever it is. You don't get paid more for it, but essentially, hopefully, it's worth it for you. It kind of encourages you to be more efficient as well, doesn't it? Because you want to maximize the amount of money that you're making. In which case, so it's good for you, maximizes efficiency for you, maximizes efficiency for the company as well. So, which theorists would support this? I think a lot of the theorists would support this. None of them said that wages and salaries aren't important. They just said that they are varying degrees of importance, didn't they? So with sort of Maslow, he definitely said that you need to have salaries and wages. You need enough to be able to get those basic needs, don't you? So Mayo would definitely say that you need pay. He just says that it's not as important as other things. It's not that you don't need it. It's that it's not as important as that. And you've definitely got the Lawler and Porter and people like that talking about expectancy theory and things like that. They would definitely say that this is important. And expectancy theory is quite important here, isn't it? Because you expect to be paid a certain amount at the end of the month. You'll know that if you've ever been paid wrongly at the end of the month, it gets in you. It really annoys you. Because you're thinking, well, now I've got to start messing around with HR and I've got to do all these things. So, again, as long as you use the evaluation ideas, and, some will lend themselves better than others, but just have a think about these and apply them in the case that you like. Okay, bonus schemes. There's a wide variety of bonus schemes available, each designed to be more suitable for different employees doing different jobs. These schemes include the following: sales bonuses. This is normally paid for if a sales target has been reached. For a salesperson, this may be a significant part of their salary. Performance bonuses. This can be paid to an individual or a group on a factory-wide basis. It's often paid for reaching targets of output and quality. This method of payment is an important part of human resource management. Christmas bonuses, often called the 13th month salary, paid for loyalty to their business. In some countries, for example Germany, virtually all companies pay a Christmas bonus. Not really something you do in the UK, to be honest, or not something that I've ever been involved with. Christmas bonus, not that I can remember anywhere. I've even when I worked in a production place, but not that I remember. But I know some people do. So state two advantages and two disadvantages of offering staff performance related pay. Well, one of them can be very motivating, can't it? It can be very motivating to people if people are in those lower stages of Maslow's hierarchy. If they're trying to satisfy those basic needs, then it can be extremely motivating, because at the end of the day, that's the reason that you're coming to work. Obviously, the higher you get, the more you satisfy those needs, the less performance related pay will have an impact on you, because you'll be less interested in that, less bothered about it, and more bothered about other things. Another advantage to it is that it will hopefully maximize the attendance and minimize staff turnover and things like that, because people will be interested, people will want to work for this company because there'll be the opportunity to make a lot of money. Issues with it though is some things are extremely hard to actually check. So again, how would you check whether a teacher should be paid for something like that? What about a manager? Are they managing correctly? What do you ask? Do you ask do we do it on appraisals or something like that? Do you do 360 appraisals? Do you do subordinate appraisals? Do you do higher ups? It's a difficult one, that, isn't it? And another one as well with the performance related pay is that it's not. It's sort of quite constricting, essentially, because you kind of making it. Do you really, does it depending on the job, some of this time wouldn't need it, but it kind of encourages you not to be innovative and stuff like that, because essentially if you can just what am I trying to say? Yeah, if you can do what you're supposed to do for the job and do it efficiently, then that's good enough, isn't it? Essentially, there's no need to be innovative. There's no need to be doing anything else. So it can actually stifle that creativity for the company because you're not there to be creative. You're there to do that job. So it's a difficult one because if the actual things that they set you to do doesn't involve being innovative and that, it could actually have the opposite effect and actually cost the business, potential success. What might the implications of providing a profit share to senior managers but not the workforce? It could be positive, like people see, okay, well, senior managers get this because they're higher up the business, they're more qualified, whatever it is. As long as they actually are, and as long as they're doing something with which is worthwhile, but not the workforce. The workforce could be quite demotivated by this, couldn't they, and be quite upset. So it could go either way. That it could be quite positive and negative at the same time, depending on which stakeholder you look at. So, non-monetary forms of motivation. So we've got all the financial ones done. Let's have a look at non-monetary. All right, so these focus on motivation. They tend to focus on the job design or the employee's jobs. Employees can be motivated by asking them to do a job that is challenging or interesting. Would you prefer to do less or more work? Think carefully. All right, an interesting one that because some people say, oh, but of course I'd prefer to do less work. Well, what about if you're bored? Some people work better under pressure. They give the best work and things like that. And some people like working in pressured things. They like the thrill of the chase for working with performance related pay and being able to maximize those commissions and things like that. So, that's up to you to make that decision about what you think, isn't it? So first of all, if we're trying to do non-monetary, we're not trying to give you we're not trying to give you a bonus or anything like that, any money, but we're trying to make your job better or more, interesting. Increases the number of similar duties, horizontal loading. Now, just before we go any further, we've got horizontal and vertical. Now, horizontal means on the same level of whatever you're doing. Okay, so if you're talking about horizontal communication, you're talking about communication with people on the same level as you in the business, all right? If you're talking about vertical communication, you're talking about people above and below you in terms of the hierarchy. Okay, now in terms of this one, horizontal loading is jobs that bits of the job which would be on your level. Okay, so similar, how hard the job is or how much responsibility it is or something. So that's what we mean by that. Okay, employees get to carry out a range of duties rather than just one. Employers get wider range of duties completed and may reduce labour costs. We've also got job rotation where employees move around the same level jobs but get variety. And we've got enlargement may reduce level of monotony but does not challenge workers more. Now, it's important that because job enlargement, it's all on the same level. So if I was asking you to put, I don't know, wheels on a stick, then I might go, okay, you've done wheels on a stick this week. So sorry, just 1 second. There's this thing annoying me. You're not going to do wheels on a stick anymore, but you're going to do pens in a pot. Okay, so put the pens in the pot, whatever it is, I don't know. But it's just basic stuff anyway. You're not going to say, oh yeah, come to this management meeting. So it just allows us to do something a bit different because it's boring if we don't. Okay, so it doesn't massively impact us, but it might make it's a little bit less boring. Next one's enrichment. Jobs provide more challenging and complex tasks. All right, so it gives greater responsibility. Now, this one would be definitely a Maslow, definitely a Mayo kind of way of thinking about things, of trying to get people more involved with the decision making in the business and sort of using their abilities. It gives greater responsibility, authority to identify and solve problems, uses all employees' ability, what we call vertical loading, so they're actually giving you responsibility for stuff above your pay grade, essentially. Enrich employees' experience of work because they feel like they're actually doing something of worth, they feel like they're actually involved with this. Managers must ensure jobs are suitable for their abilities, supported by Hertzberg, like we've said, our hygiene and non-hygiene factors, so our hygiene and motivating factors. The motivating factors, they always say this, don't they, of giving them responsibility and trying to make them feel better. But Maslow says the same, really, doesn't he? And Mayo still definitely is involved with that kind of stuff of making people feel more involved with that decision-making process. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense, that one. Next one's team working. Yeah, this is definitely a Mayor point, isn't it? Production process broken down into large units. Team given responsibility for completing large units of work. Major trend in businesses. Social needs can be met. Maslow and Hertzberg. Actual motivation probably comes down from redesigning of the job to allow teamwork rather than the teamwork in itself. So what we're saying here, actual motivation is probably what Mayor's saying. The actual motivation comes from redesigning and actually being involved with the redesigning of the job to actually go, oh, well, actually, how do we make this into a teamwork rather than, doing this? Because actually making those decisions as well can be really, really motivating for those. And at the bottom here, it says production teams, quality circle teams, and management teams. If you remember, quality circle is all about total quality management, isn't it? And making sure the quality is good enough, being able to do like cell production almost, where you're making something better and then treating people like internal customers and things like that. All right. Employee empowerment is another one. Redesigning jobs to allow greater control over the working lives gives employees the opportunity to decide how to carry out the work duties and organise their work. Maslow and Hertzberg would like this. Training must be provided as it can take time to implement. So this is one just giving people autonomy, giving people responsibility. So asking people, how do you best work and how can we produce, how can we do it more for you? So if you prefer to work from home, if you prefer to do things like flexible working, if you decide that you want to, switch it up with people like that, then you can do that. That's something that we can do for you. So in terms of this, empowering people is to give them the opportunity to have more control over how they physically do the job, and sort of foster that creativity in people and innovation, really. Job design's a big one. Jobs should include complete tasks that are of interest to the worker and challenging, which allow the decision making. This is an interesting one, isn't it? Right at the top, job design, because I think with education, we don't design education around students. We don't think what would be interesting to them. We think of what the spec has, really, because it's all about passing the exam rather than actually becoming good at a topic, isn't it? Of training you actually in a subject. But I think job design is an interesting one. Maybe people would be more enthused by it if you could really, job design. The problem is when you've got 30 different people in a room, it's quite difficult to job design it where each one of them are going to be satisfied individually. Flexible working, allowing workers to have elements of their schedule which are under their control. For example, the opportunity to work from home or have core hours and flexible overtime. Flexi time, it's sometimes known as. A lot of people like that. You can come in any time before 10, you can leave any time after 4. As long as you get your core hours done, then that's fine. Communication and employee consultation, very Mayo, isn't it? Communication is a part of the motivation that can take place in a number of ways. Quality circles, works council, cell working, that kind of stuff. It's important to actually get people involved and make them feel part of the organisation. If you don't do this, you'll be surprised how fast you'll lose them. Okay. Okay. Now, in terms of impact on your organisational structure, now we haven't really talked about organisational structure. We will do eventually. But organisational structure, if you remember, very, very tall versus very, very flat. The taller the ones, the more levels they have, the more levels of management you have, the more difficult it is to get communication, and you might have a breakdown of communication, things like that. The flatter the structure, the more delegation of empowerment of the job, because you give them more responsibility. There isn't as many levels of management. Some people prefer to have a flat structure. Some people prefer to have a tall structure. It depends on the job, doesn't it? Someone who works stacking shelves at Tesco might not feel comfortable working in a more flat structure because they might not feel comfortable. They might not feel trained enough to be able to deal with the more autonomy that they're given. However, if you get someone who's used to working in a flat one and then giving them a tall structure, tall structures tend to be a lot more locked down in terms of management and micromanaging people. They would really upset people and demotivate them. So more control, more likely to involve job rotation, enlargement, and more financial methods, that kind of stuff with this one. So with the tall structure, it tends to be more just that classic, managers manage, workers work kind of thing. With the flat structure, more thought about, professionals doing jobs to be able to, with some autonomy and some thought to the fact that they are professionals in their own right, or they have skills or abilities that you particularly need. Okay, I will put this in the description. But there is a little video here about the benefits given to Google So Googlers, the people who work at Google. If they're financial or non-financial, just want you to break them up into really simple things. As I said, I can't show them you here, but I will put that in the description, so have a go at that one. And then just answer these questions for me. So which motivation theories link to the incentives Google give to staff? Why are these incentives motivated? Why have these incentives motivated the staff? And can you think of any problems for Google in the future? Just for this one, try and just break it down into individual things if you can. I know we've talked about quite a lot of different ones. So that brings us to sort of the end of this one. I know I've talked about quite a lot of different ones and just sort of been spouting information at you. In the books that you've got, there's a lot of information about these things as well, so don't worry too much if you haven't picked up everything I've been talking about, because there's a lot of information, and it will be sort of gone into more detail. Well, we have already gone into more detail in class, but if you haven't gone in more detail in class, then we will do. And please ask questions and things like that. You know, if you get stuck or things like that, please ask, because it's an important one. All right. So, ladies and gents, it brings us to the bit of the day where we're going to have a little look at the news. So I'm going to get it up. Let's find out what's happening in this crazy world we have. There we go. Okay, so let's have a look. Here we are. Right. So we've got use common sense to see loved ones outdoors. 2 people from different households can meet outside in England if 2 meters apart. The government confirms. I wonder why it was necessary for Dominic Raab to come out and to talk about that specifically. But yeah. More European nations begin easing restrictions, it says. It says crowd concerns as Australia's restrictions ease. Spaniards can return to cafes. What did they do during the Spanish flu? So an interesting one. Iranian sailors killed in friendly fire accident. Seinfeld John Jerry Stiller dies at 92. Arrivals from France to escape the UK quarantine. This is the problem, isn't it? Do you not think this is mental? Look at that, right? Look, we've got to have a look at this. What is this, right? Passengers arriving from France will be exempt from the forthcoming UK coronavirus quarantine measures. Boris Johnson said on Sunday that the rules will be imposed on people coming into the UK, prevent COVID-19 from being brought in from overseas. As yet, no start or end date for the measure has been announced. The government has already indicated that people arriving from the Republic of Ireland will not be made to go into quarantine. However, the measures will apply to the UK holidaymakers returning from other destinations. Travel industry analysts said that they were meant a 1 week or 2 week holidays abroad will be followed by another 2 weeks in self-isolation. That's not going to work then, is it? The World Travel and Tourism Council expressed concern of how the new measures, saying it would damage confidence and would-be travellers. Well, yeah. It says... Where are we? Following, number 10 confirmed a reciprocal deal for the government in Paris meant restrictions would not apply to passengers from France. Do they not get this thing right? There's a global pandemic on. It's not a case of making deals. It's not a case of like, some political posturing to make people feel better about themselves or win points or anything like that. People are dying. They don't seem to get this. This was crazy. It's really strange to me that they're still doing these things, and like it's all a big joke kind of thing. Like they're not seeing it as reality. This is for the foreseeable future. Oh, thanks, BBC. Businesses want clear guidance on return to work. Yeah, damn right we do. He says business groups have called for clarity on what will need to change in the workplace as Boris Johnson unveils a conditional plan to reopen society. Businesses need their practical questions answered so that they plan to restart, rebuild and renew. The Prime Minister said those who could not work from home should be actively encouraged to go to work. What does that mean? Threatened? But he told people to avoid using public transport. Okay. Businesses will need to see detailed plans of the phased easing of restrictions coordinated with all nations across the UK and supported by clear guidance. Yeah, which it isn't supported by all the nations of the UK at all, is it? He hinted that it's imperative that companies have detailed advice on what will need to change in the workplace, including clarity on what the use of personal protective equipment. The televised address, Mr. Johnson said he wanted those in the construction and manufacturing industries to return to work this week. Caution was, however, urged by trade groups such as the Institute of Directors. Its Director General, Jonathan Gelder, said it was vital that the guidance was clear so that companies could plan to return safely. As people with ultimate legal responsibility, directors need to have confidence that it's safe and that they act responsibly. They won't be at undue risk, because businesses should consult with their people to put in place robust policies, which in many cases might not be an overnight process. Well, it isn't, is it? It's absolutely insane. They were keen to open and get the economy back on its feet. Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I'm sure you are. We all are. This is what everybody's saying as well. I don't know if you've seen social media and stuff like this, but it's like everyone thinks that they're like really, I really care about the country. I think that we need to do this, blah blah blah. Well, you go and put yourself on the line then. You go and put yourself at risk. You send your kids to school and go and see if they get ill. And if they get ill, I really hope that they don't die. I really hope they don't get ill. I hope you are proven right in terms of, oh yeah, this is all just a big conspiracy and it's all a big joke and I can do whatever I want. I really hope that you're right, but where are you getting your information from? Because the only place I can get mine from looks like they're making it up as they go along. Very little has changed in terms of the regulations and prohibitions first announced in March. Lockdown remains. Closed shops, for example, won't reopen. What we did get is a change of emphasis that should assume they should go back to work rather than presume they should not. So, some in government and in industry fear that stay-at-home message has now deeply embedded itself in the minds of millions of workers. The Prime Minister's replacement of message of stay alert, stay up all night, in England is designed to get businesses to use the existing discretion on the lockdown regulations. The practicalities are not that easy, however, with business groups and unions not agreeing on what constitutes COVID-safe workplace. Well, yeah, this is the point, isn't it? There's a hell of a lot of stakeholders here, and they're just ignoring them. Crazy. Wow. Saudi Arabia VAT to support coronavirus hit economy. It says Saudi Arabia is tripling its VAT as part of austerity measures to control its coronavirus hit economy. The government has also said it will suspend the cost of living allowance and shore up finances. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just getting many messages during this. The Kingdom first introduced VAT 2 years ago as part of efforts to cut its reliance on world crude oil markets. Saudi Arabia's state news agency said VAT will increase from 5% to 15%. 5% is, well, that's low, isn't it? So in terms of this, they're not doing anything that we already got more than this. As what the 1st of July is, the cost of living allowance will be suspended. The allowance of 1,000 rials per month to state employees was introduced in 2018 to help offset increased financial burdens, including VAT. Interesting, putting the VAT up and then scrapping, certain benefits essentially. High streets see the fastest ever footfall drop. Yeah. I can't believe. Personally, I can't believe that this is news. Shops should reopen based on safety. Yeah. Why is that news? Why is this open for discussion? That we should be putting people at risk. We should be put people who potentially could die. It's not just a bit of a cough. People aren't getting better from this. We're still. I mean, if you look at the thing, if you look at the message that they're giving out as well, you've got to be careful. You've got to be sensible about these things, and it seems like they're just going crazy, doesn't it? I know that the economy is going to be massively damaged by this, but it's not going to matter if you've got a job to go back to if you yourself or your family or your friends or whatever aren't there to do it. I'm annoyed today. As I said, it's this thing's got under my skin a little bit. It just feels like they're being they're not being sensible about the decision making they're making, are they? We teach decision making, we teach leadership, and that's not what this is. This is give very, very convoluted general advice that is open to interpretation and maybe might actually cause harm to people. You don't play around with this kind of stuff, do you? But anyway, I'm sorry we ended on a low. Usually I like to, have a look on the news and find something positive to end on. But what a strange day we are in today, and this this government showing themselves to be inept again. Slow to lockdown, misunderstanding lockdown, sort of like half lockdown, not really lockdown, and then trying to bring us out of it way faster, despite there being, we're the second most affected country in the world, by this outbreak, and yet they're still saying, oh yeah, let's just start trying to get back to normal. No, normality, whatever normal is, normal might never resume for some people because they've had loved ones pass away and things like that, and they're not taking advantage. They're not taking taking that point, are they? Really, I don't know what the suggestion is, and I'm not in a position to make that claim. But ultimately, all you've got to do, and I need you to make sure that you stay safe, that you keep yourself safe, and don't do anything. Don't put yourself at an unnecessary risk. And remember that you can go and do unlimited exercise soon. If you want to go and play five-a-side football with just your mum, then from Wednesday you can do it. So I look forward to that. This has been Mr. Businessman. I hope it's been helpful. I'm sorry if it was a little bit ravelly today. As I said, it's just sort of knocked me for six a little bit. This whole thing. I'm just not in a particularly good mood about it, to be honest. But what can you do? Anyway, back on it tomorrow, and we'll get back to it. Stay safe. I will see you soon.